Do not fear. This is Commander Thorund of the newly formed Romulan Republic. As a token of goodwill to strengthen the new alliance between the Romulan Republic and the Federation, I am educating you humans about the rich military history of the Romulan people. Allow me to introduce the Stormkite, a perfect historical replica of a V-30 Winged Defender class battlecruiser, first used in the Romulan Star Empire's navy in what in your calendar would be the 23rd century. This was a time during the Genesis device incidents and before the crisis resulting from the explosion of the Klingon moon Praxis, a time when the Quadrant was on the verge of war. This class is named after a species of raptor on Remus that fiercely defends their nest from interlopers. This often overlooked design was among the most advanced starships of its era, rivaling any of the larger cruisers built by the Federation or the Klingons. This is a third-generation cloak design. The first generation of cloaking ships included the V-8 Bird of Prey, like the one that battled the Enterprise in 2268. The second generation of cloaking ships spawned from our brief alliance and technology exchange with the Klingons. The third generation came back to pure Romulan origins, and integrated the best of what we had learned from the Klingons and some acquired Federation technology, plus pure Romulan innovation. The Winged Defender is equal to or greater in mass than the Federation Constitution-class cruisers. But as this ship is designed for war, the crew amenities are Spartan in comparison. This ship has two modes, a cruise mode and an attack or tactical mode. In cruise mode, the two warp nacelles work in tandem, much like many Starfleet vessels with even-numbered warp nacelles. The nacelles emit a great deal of harmful radiation, so like most Starfleet and Klingon ships, they are positioned at a safe distance from the main hull at the end of the wings. At the time, the Empire was running severely low on dilithium until quantum singularity warp drives came into use. Ships like this one used a much smaller dilithium focusing crystal compared to similar ships in the Klingon and Federation fleets. For this reason, the Winged Defenders had a massive auxiliary power source in the fusion-powered impulse drive, which by proxy allowed for amazing speed and performance at sublight speeds. This engine configuration had some disadvantages, and one was excessive heat. This was especially a problem when cloaked, since heat emissions would be easily detectable. At full impulse while cloaked, heat tended to build up very quickly. The heat had to be dissipated. The wings are the solution. The wings are full of superconducting conduits and heat sinks, as well as a massive plasma distribution system. After decloaking, the wings could radiate excess heat into space or through secondary thrusters. Also, the plasma that passes through the wings to the warp nacelles could be emitted through a number of well-placed vents and used to reinforce the already substantial shield system. And now for the weapons. Romulan ships in the 23rd century were known to move slowly and ambush opponents with powerful plasma weapons, and while this ship is certainly capable of that, it also had more staying power for longer-term fights. It is the first cruiser with an impulse drive that can outmaneuver any Klingon or Starfleet cruiser, as well as some destroyers, but also the first to use photon torpedoes as an alternative to plasma torpedoes, which were housed in these weapon pods below the ship. Since photon torpedoes were new to the Romulan Navy at this time, very much like the warp nacelles, the weapons were extended below the ship when armed in case of any catastrophic failures or misfires. Photon torpedoes allowed these ships to fight at a standoff range rather than rely on ambush tactics. However, these weapon pods could easily be refit to fire plasma torpedoes. In some elite models, they could even be switched between photon and plasma mode. Plasma is the best option for stealth approach and attack. Plasma torpedoes are devastating at close range, and if these ships are given the opportunity to close undetected, they can usually destroy the enemy ship. If a stealth attack failed, the ship could decloak and quickly transfer power to shields and disruptors. The Winged Defender has a number of rapid-fire disruptor turrets, most of them forward, But in situations where a strafing attack was needed, there were lateral and aft firing disruptors available. The damage output of these disruptors was softened slightly less than the equivalent-sized Federation phasers at full power, but they were far less of a power drain, very reliable, and every bit as accurate as their opponents' weapons. Romulan winged defenders were the best cruisers until the advent of Singularity power. They served as command ships for smaller task forces. They performed many special covert ops missions. Many believe that these ships did not encounter other Federation cruiser-sized ships at that time, but I am now here to tell you that they did. But the victims' transmissions were jammed, and they never lived to tell about the encounter. Thank you for watching, Space Friends! If you like this content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if you really like this content, share it around to your friends, and consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You can find the address at patreon.com/resurrected or linked in the description below. And special thanks to new patrons, Brent Padak, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Jean-Luc Martel. You guys help me to eventually be able to do this full time. Until next time, Space Friends.